My mission is simple, to make you money. I'm here to level the playing field for all investors. There's always a bull market somewhere, and I promise to help you find it. Mad Money starts now. Hey, I'm Cramer. Welcome to Mad Money. Welcome to Cramerica. I'll be one of my friends just trying to make some money. My job is not just to entertain you, but to educate and teach you, so call me at 1-800-743-CNBC or tweet me at Jim Cramer. What happens when the consensus has the consensus wrong? This morning, 3 of my favorite strategists came on our air and said that they were bullish, in part because everyone is so bearish. Each one took turns explaining how those bears would turn into bulls, propelling stocks higher. Buy! Just one little problem. When one strategist says everyone's bearish, well, that's a listen up moment. When 2 strategists says everyone's bearish, well, you might get a little suspicious. But when 3 big shot strategists say everyone's bearish, you got to figure the consensus is wrong. We don't have too many bears. We have too many bulls. And maybe that's why the averages rolled over today, with the Dow tumbling 317 points, S&P sinking 1%, Nasdaq losing 0.65%. And by the way, things were a lot uglier for the Dow in the early afternoon. You see, when most investors are bullish, it means, well, there's no one left to buy. Of course, these strategists are smart, rigorous people. They have plenty of facts on their sides. Everything from low interest rates to robust earnings, massive liquidity, all that stuff that's good, right? The fact that there is a miraculous vaccine on the way. I would let anyone in them manage my money if I were allowed to have money managed. Unfortunately, these positives have a whistling past the graveyard tenor to them, and I mean that literally. Let me tell you why. First, it's one thing to read about the rising number of COVID cases. Yesterday, there were 144,000 one day. It's another thing to realize what that growth rate means. If infections keep spreading like this, a gigantic portion of the country is actually going to catch this thing. Some say this most recent spike is from Halloween parties. That's just nonsense. Look at the chart. We were having cases going up big on October 30th. The truth is, it's not a spike. It's plain old exponential growth. We used to think there were hot spots like nursing homes or places of worship, but it's not just big gatherings. It's having dinner with your friends inside or bringing your kids home from school. Thanksgiving's only a few weeks away. What happens then? It's becoming like a Stephen King novel. Forget hot spots. It's more like hot swaths. Because the virus, it's everywhere. It's just ridiculously and horrendously contagious. Now, I know millions of Americans are convinced that COVID's equivalent to a bad cold. And it's only dangerous if you're older or have some kind of pre-existing health condition. President's 74 years old. He got it, went to the hospital for the weekend. And then it seemed like he came out and was more energetic. But the President of the United States gets the best health care in the world, including an experimental drug made by Regeneron that's only been given to a handful of people outside of clinical trials. Sure, we've made real progress at treating the virus. Absolutely. However, if you get a severe case, if you actually need treatment, you still need to go to the hospital, and you need to see a doctor. Unfortunately, our doctors and our hospitals are both stretched to the limit. When they run out of capacity, we do enter Stephen King territory, and COVID becomes a lot more lethal than it should be. So what happens then? Now, we keep hearing that no politicians want another lockdown. The last one was brutal for the economy. It sure was. The federal government had to basically pay people not to work so they could stay home and help us flatten the curve. Remember that term, flatten the curve? We'll get ready to hear it all the time, if it's possible. This time around, I'm betting we won't have full lockdowns, although we'll definitely have partial ones. Eventually, they'll close the bars, the restaurants, maybe the schools. However, even without statewide shelter-in-place orders, we'll end up with nearly everyone staying home, especially if local governments enforce mask mandates and social distancing. After a while, it will be so obvious going out is too risky. Going out of your home, too risky, that the most courageous or stupid will still hunker down. Basically, we'll have a nationwide self-quarantine, except this time there won't be any extra money from Washington to tide people over. Last time, we had a lockdown where only essential stores were allowed to stay open. This time, I expect consumers to do the same thing on their own. You only go out for the essentials because you don't want to get sick or have your family get sick. In short, even if the government does nothing to stop the spread, we still have to deal with a raging pandemic, and that's not a recipe for a robust bull market or a robust economy. We should thank our lucky stars that the Fed is keeping interest rates low, allowing people to buy homes in the suburbs of the country, then pay to renovate them and buy a car to get around. That sequence is what's keeping the economy alive. But it only works if you still have a job. A downturn would be bad news for a lot of employers. Don't forget 13 million people in the hospitality business in real trouble. Lockdown or no lockdown, many small, medium-sized businesses could be wiped out. This time, though, the landlords and creditors will be less forgiving. Maybe they'll have a heart and wait to foreclose until we get a vaccine. Then again, maybe the bank examiners won't let them. Who wants those stocks? Not me. In this void, what kind of leadership do we have? It's less leadership, more leadership vacuum. I heard from the president today. He sent me, and millions of others, a campaign appeal. Protect the electoral process. Silly me, I actually thought the election would be over after we voted. But Trump's campaigning as though the race is still on. Meanwhile, the Democrats and Republicans in Congress have dug in their heels. It doesn't look like they're in any mood to get any stimulus deal done. Our public health leadership, shambles. It was terrific to hear Dr. Fauci say there's a light at the end of the tunnel. I'm hopeful we'll get good news from Moderna, Johnson & Johnson, GlaxoSmithKline, and Merck. In particular, I'd like to know that J&J has 1 billion, if not 2 billion, vaccine doses sitting in frozen warehouses all over the country. I want Merck to come up with a pill that pushes the mortality rate close to zero. And while I'm at it, I would like you to give me a Lamborghini. Without some new breakthrough, I see a world where we stop traveling again, perhaps forcing all the airlines to follow America's lead in offering a huge chunk of stock. Worst case, American Airlines, remember that deal was at 13. It's not looking good. The airlines will need another bailout from the government if there is a government. I can see a bankruptcy looming for the minor retailer chains that we don't think of, the non-essentials, and many of the larger players in the mall. We know consumer spending declines when you or a family member gets sick. Given that nearly 1 million Americans have been diagnosed with COVID in the last week, that's a lot of people spending less money. Of course, we could take the worst-case scenario off the table. Get this, I was thinking, how about if President Trump and President-elect Biden would get together and plot out a strategy to distribute the vaccine? And by the way, I think J&J does have 1 billion, okay? Distribute J&J's vaccine and Pfizer's vaccine as soon as possible. They work together. We get a national plan to manufacture hundreds of millions of doses and then distribute them all over the country, like we did with the polio vaccine, where you all lined up and you all got it at your school instantly. Can you imagine them working together? Would that be a great country? The bottom line, if you're bullish on stocks here, you have to recognize all these things and believe that in the end, they don't mean anything, because we just need to hold on long enough for people to get vaccinated. If you don't feel that way, though, you have to accept that we're in for some pain, because this market has too many bulls, and a good deal of them are going to panic.
Don't miss a second of Mad Money. Follow @Jim Cramer on Twitter. Have a question? Tweet Cramer. #MadTweets. Send Jim an email to madmoney@cnbc.com or give us a call at 1-800-743-CNBC. Miss something? Head to madmoney.cnbc.com.
Shepard Smith here. Thanks for watching CNBC on YouTube.